Sam.
Hello. I haven't been in one of these for a while.
There hasn't been one for a while. The last one was cancelled because of Thanksgiving.
Yes. I guess that might be another thing to talk about. The holidays coming up.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to get on to that. Oh, Sam asked me to do 438, which I will volunteer to do as soon as Javier mentions it. Which is, I think, the Catacoda thing. When will Google Docs get Emacs key bindings?
All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I went ahead. The stream should be going now. Yes. Okay. And then next we have status updates. From my side, I don't feel like I've been doing a lot on the learning team side of things. I do have an update for the LFX mentorship, but I added that to the agenda.
Cool.
Any other status updates?
No, only that Sam did ask me to do 438, which I haven't gotten around to yet. And I have time next week as soon as Sam merges my PRs, then I can do it.
I finally got around to automating the Katacola stuff. tried tried to use templating in weird ways that I probably shouldn't have, but it works, so can't complain. But I should probably write some documentation on how all of that stuff actually works, because I think it might be extremely weird for people who don't who see it for the first time as to how everything's happening. Like seeing random HTML comments saying if false, then nothing.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I did add that to the agenda or Katacoda in general, to maybe get a high level understanding of how it now works. Now that I think we have that sort of, what is it, migration or syncing strategy going. But yeah, maybe we could get a little bit of a overview of that if you don't mind later today.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, moving over to Stel PRs. This is an interesting one, Sam, because I feel like we're at the end of the year and this PR didn't actually get merged in.
Which one is it? You're not sharing your screen.
Sorry, I'll share my screen real quick. All right, are you able to see?
Oh, this one.
So for some context, right, we had a quarterly review on the leadership side of things on aligning our roadmap to more or less the things that we're actually working on, and kind of, some priorities might have shifted throughout the year, and we did that, successfully to some extent. But I think the part where it fell apart was I was to take and essentially update our roadmap document in our community repo to reflect some of those decisions. The problem is that it was a lot of, essentially like, what is it called? Like holistic general guidance. And there wasn't a lot of concrete, this is what this means, right? Like there wasn't a lot of depth to a lot of the decisions that were made. And so that's where I kind of deferred to other individuals like Steven. I think Terrence was on here, and it just never went anywhere, right? Like enough pinging happened that I felt like I was annoying people too much for something that might not have as much focus. So I'm not sure how to fix it in the future, but I don't know if this is, applicable at this point in time.
So, what's the impact if we just close this PR?
Like I said, because it's so late, I guess, to go out, there really wouldn't be an impact per se. I think what I'm maybe more conscious of is how to make this process better for the next quarterly review, right? So yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now, and I think that this is going to be one of those things I bring up during those quarterly reviews about actually following through with updating the roadmap and not just having discussions about it. So I could take. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wondered, is this something that you want to merge because not because it's a fully formed roadmap, but because you want the next one to not be the first one?
I mean, we already have a roadmap. This was making adjustments to the roadmap for this quarter. Yeah. Yeah, and I think myself and Sam's also, privy to those kind of conversations, so we could bring it up. How we just didn't actually portray it to the community the way that we actually wanted it to. That being said, I'll go ahead and close this if it's okay with everybody. Can I?
Close this as in?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll keep it open and I'll add a comment as to why I closed it. All right. Okay, next topic, holidays. What does that look like for the other side of the world?
Freaking awesome.
Okay, so we're all in the same boat. Is it awesome because we won't be here, or is it awesome because you'll also take a lot of time off?
We'll take, well, I think both of us are taking a lot of time off, aren't we, Sambhav?
I think I'm off from work. Might still be around for open source stuff. I don't know. Depends.
Depends on how you feel. Okay, got it.
But yeah, I'm mostly off between the 19th till the end of the year.
Okay.
All right, I'm in the same boat.
So if we look at this calendar, we're saying, you said 14, 15?
From the week starting 20th.
Oh, 20th. Okay, so the 20th. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be on that same boat. So that would mean that at least this meeting would be impacted and probably canceled. So I think we might want to do that.
I think that's probably, Christmas Eve is probably reasonable to cancel.
I could take that on. And I guess we'll let other people deal with working group and whatnot. But just, I guess, for everybody here, VMware will be out, I think that all of the 27th, but obviously I wouldn't be surprised as well on the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else about holidays? Cool. All right, the next topic I added to the agenda, it has to do with the LFX mentorship. If you weren't aware, we did have a mentee. Her name was Harshita, and she was helping us with giving a facelift or making some improvements to our feature screen. And so that's this screen right here. I think what we wanted to do is expand on this comparison to be a little bit more descriptive. And also because of that nature, we wanted to kind of change the layout so that you could do a, 1v1 comparison instead of kind of having this overview chart. As far as that went, we do have a branch where she was able to make a sizable amount of changes to it. And I think we'll be able to take that and push it out. Right now, some of the changes that are missing have to do with a section that she wanted to add regarding blog posts or articles. Let me see if I can put that up. Yeah, so there's a blog section underneath it, and basically that becomes the 1v1 kind of like in-depth article or blog post. And we could obviously add additional articles and blog posts from the community, from other individuals or organizations. And this part right here is blocked because we're waiting on Joe to approve and publish some of the blog posts that she's created. So she's still working on that. But as far as the official mentorship, that has concluded. So we'll kind of have to take it from there. Any questions, comments, concerns, or anything? All right, awesome. Moving on, let's see, Katakoda. I think I stated why I added this to the list, but it seems like there's multiple talking points here. How do we want to start with that?
So I can talk a bit about how I imagine this to be happening. So there are ways to embed Katakoda in the website. So it will sort of show up as it'll just embed the whole thing as an iframe. With that, you do lose the ability to just normally search and view the docs. You view it in Katakoda format. I personally don't think we should force that onto people, that they can only view a documentation through Katakoda and they can't search it or view it normally or use it outside of Katakoda when if they're trying to forward locally. So there are other premium integrations which websites like Gates have, where I don't know how it works, but apparently they just have normal documentation, and instead of the whole Katakoda thing, there's a terminal that just pops up from the bottom, kind of like Quake or something, and you can click on their normal README documentation, and if you, instead of like copy to clipboard, there's a run in Katakoda thing that runs it in that terminal that pops up, which is pretty cool, but I don't know how that works, and I don't even know if we can use it. Like, I know we reached out to CNCF about Katakoda embedding, but like I look at the docs and each time it says you need to have like a premium business enterprise account to do that, and we don't. So I don't know how it works. I've also checked the Gates doc website, and they have a really complicated build system to get this all working. So I don't know how that works. Our solution, meanwhile, is that the main problem with the Katakoda docs right now is that it was a separate repository, which was essentially a clone of our docs with some minor changes to make it work on Katakoda. And each time someone changed the docs, they would have to go and change Katakoda, otherwise they would diverge. So what I wanted to do was to auto-generate the Katakoda stuff and keep it in the docs repository, so that like there's a single source of truth, everything else is auto-generated, and you can all still test it using Google. So that's the other thing with Katakoda is like testing. There is a way to test Katakoda, but it involves using Selenium and JavaScript, and they have their own like library for doing something very similar to what Google does, like setting up the base environment, but it all runs on Katakoda and stuff. So that was the other alternative. What I ended up basically doing was writing a really small Go application that parses some input files, and it uses HTML comment tags as delimiters instead of the normal curly braces. So when Hugo parses it, it just sees those as HTML comment tags, ignores them entirely. When our parser parses it, we use them as as delimiters for a templating, like the normal Go templating language. Those normal rules apply. It's just that instead of curly braces, you have those.
I see. Okay. Could you either share a screen to a sample of what that syntax looks like, or the usage of that, or?
Yep. Let me show you. So here, I'll try to explain the structure. I'll try to also create a pull request explaining how all of this works in a README here. But the crux of it is this main.go file doesn't have any dependencies apart from the standard library. What it does is the following. First, strips out the front matter because we can't parse that in Katacoda, replaces that with nothing. Then normalizes any links that we have. So like we use relative links in our documentation, just normalizes that to use buildpacks.io. And then just uses the templating language with the HTML comment tag delimiters with a plus sign added so that we can differentiate normal comment tags from the templating tags. So this is a normal HTML comment delimiter. There's just a plus added so that you can differentiate. I couldn't think of a better way to do that, but it would probably involve some combination of the HTML comment tags and some special character to denote the delimiters. So that's how we define the template. We just go through the list of files and render them out. The list of files are mapped here. This is the input file. This is the output file so that we don't render out the whole directory. We just render out what we want to where we want it. And then the rest of the Katacoda documentation, we do keep generated files here, but there's also a CI checker which makes sure that like you've kept these files up to date. So if you make any changes, you can just run, like it shows you run make generate Katacoda, and it will automatically generate a bunch of things. But it also runs a simple git diff to check if these things have diverged in CI. So the way it works is there are some auto-generated files here, some manual files that are needed as part of Katacoda. So like things like index.json, etc., are like handwritten. Things like step1.md is generated because it's defined here in files text.
Okay. And we have to check in the generated files because that's how Katacoda works, right?
Yeah.
For it.
So there's a top level Katacoda YAML file that says that, hey, the actual Katacoda place to look is not the root of the repository, but the subfolder. So inside the subfolder is the normal Katacoda like directory structure and syntax that they expect for each of those directories. So there's a index.json that defines the scenario, and then there's a like setup scripts for the for like what to do. So like this thing sets up back, and this thing just waits for the background script to execute, and a bunch of other things like that. So I've migrated over the two guides, the app developer and app journey guides. We still have to migrate the buildpack author guide. And in terms of what the actual like content looks like, let me show you. So going back here, let's look at some of the files we parse. So let's first take a look at this one, content docs, appjourney.md. So content docs, appjourney.md. And if I view it in raw format. So the good thing about this is that Katacoda had a syntax that would break markdown parsing. Because we're using like the HTML tags, markdown parsing still works as normal, and those things only get rendered out at the end. So you see these tags here, if false and end. So that's like a normal Go template block. So when in Katacoda world, we just want to like not show any of this. Like we don't want to show a button to Katacoda itself when we're on Katacoda. We don't want to show the download buttons to pack because it's already on there. and we don't want to show the button for installing Docker because that again is already on there. So like you can do a simple if, false, and end to remove pieces you want. And then if you want to add pieces like here, you can just use go like template, like the normal template strings to render things out. So you can do a multi-line string like this. Again, this is all normal Go syntax. So this is a delimiter. Here we've started the string. Here's what we want to print out, end string, end delimiter, and that's it. Similarly, for like the execute stuff, Go templating language has this thing where if you put a minus in front of it, it strips all the white space out.
Right.
So the reason I couldn't put an HTML tag at the end of these three things here is that Markdown can't parse it anymore. Like it requires this thing to be separate from this one. So this was just a hack that when you execute it in Katakota format, this goes all the way here, but normally it just stays like this.
So what does that execute one do again? Is
So
that
that makes this an executable thing. So on Katakota, you can click it and it will execute. So if you go to /buildpacks, app journey, start. So you see these things?
Yes.
So it's basically a syntax for marking blocks which you would like to execute, as opposed to just like normal code blocks.
Right. So if you go back, I guess my question was, is there a start and end tag to that execute, or?
No, it's just attached to a code block that you want to execute. So the Katakota syntax is documented here, and start creating tutorials.
Is it the scenario syntax?
Oh, where did it say that? Sorry. Oh, yes, there it is. So like, yeah. So this is what we want to end up with, but this is obviously going to cause problems with Hugo and Markdown if we do it this way. So I have to find a way to end up with something like this when you render it, but look like a normal HTML comment when you don't. So.
Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty cool, actually. I really like it. The thing about the plus that's a little bit maybe confusing, off-putting. I was going to initially propose whether the delimiter could be still the HTML, but instead of a plus, use like the open curlies and close curlies, like double open, just like templating. But then I wonder what that would look like when you're also have internal, double curlies.
Ones, right? Yeah.
Katakota.
Yeah. That's why I just went with something that could not clash.
Yeah, interesting.
But I'm not tied to that. It's fairly easy to replace that. Those delimiters are just defined in that small main script that I have here. You can change this, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No, that makes sense. It's pretty straightforward, but at the same time, I think it does require a little bit of gymnastics, especially like that execute one you mentioned, where you're using the trim function essentially to put it next to it. That's interesting.
I had gotten up till this point, and everything was working fine, and that execute thing was killing me because Hugo wouldn't parse it and Markdown wouldn't parse it if you put HTML tags next to existing characters without a white space or break in the middle. So,
right.
So I just had to find some way of like pushing it all the way there while still keeping it as an HTML comment. And
yeah, that works. Yeah, I was thinking like maybe as an alternative, if there was a different special syntax for Katacoda specific character or commands, right? Or syntax, whatever you want to call it. So if you could hypothetically, right, separate the ones that are Go templating and then the ones that are very specific to Katacoda syntax. And maybe that could be a little bit more legible, but that's me spitballing. I don't have anything concrete.
It's easily doable. Like that main Go file can just do a regex extraction for those whatever commands we define and replace them with something else. It's just I wanted something done quickly, and this was bothering me that we were diverging away more and more from.
Yeah. No, it works, and it's beautiful, and it's in its own way.
It's beautiful.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else?
No, I think you're right though, Javier. It would have been nice if they stole some ideas from Pandoc and made the descriptive block at the top of the triple dash more expressive. To put the execute inside there rather than coming up with yet more stuff.
Yeah, because I have seen that. I don't know if Pandoc is what I had in mind, but essentially when you specify the syntax, right, you could add additional metadata, and that would have been a much better place. Yeah. All right. Anything else with Katacoda? I know Aiden, you added an issue of I guess your next.
Sambhav added the issue, and he told me to do it, and I didn't do it. So I think, yeah, it's just.
I asked you if you could do it.
You told me, Sambhav.
Well, now you know how it works, so this should be a lot easier, right?
But yeah, that issue, like we can also just mark it open for contribution. So like if someone else wants to work on it, I don't think that's an issue. It's just that I have to first write a README on how all of this works, which I will.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and move that author's guide over to be generated in that way. So if you want to sign it to me, I'll get it done on Monday.
Okay, if we're done with that topic, I think we've reached the end of the agenda. Anything else? Last parting words?
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year. Yeah. All right.